here today to represent an infantry section from the Zulu War of 1879, perhaps the most famous of Queen Victoria's small wars. And it's quite appropriate perhaps that we're marching around in the pouring rain. People tend to think of Africa as being a very hot, warm and sunny climate, but in January 1879 there was wet weather there, and on the 20th of January and the 24th of moving up to the Isandlwana camp, they actually were drenched in a thunderstorm of rain as well. So perhaps we're following our forebears in terms of getting a little bit damp and wet in African kit. As I say, probably one of Queen Victoria's most famous little wars. It should be put in some sort of context. Queen Victoria comes to the throne in 1837, dies in 1901. At the start of her empire, she's actually still sitting on a throne that hasn't formed the empire as we know it. The continent of Africa hasn't even been mapped, they're colonised, and even the subcontinent of India has been conquered with British Raj. By the end of her time in 1901, as Queen Empress, she presides over the world's largest empire, on one in which truly the sun never sets. And as a British soldier who actually takes the empire of Her Majesty, maintains the Pax Britannica, and keeps the empire going. So what are we doing in Africa in 1879? Well, this is part of the great dream of the African imperialists of the Cape to Cairo Railway, the idea that you can paint a line of red across the whole of the continent from north to south. We've had some colony from South Africa going back to the 1730s. We actually acceded in 1815 as part of the Treaty of the end of the Napoleonic Wars. We're given the old Cape Colony and the very deepest part of South Africa. And from then on in, the infantry start to move themselves forward, expanding the imperial dream of heading north. By the 1840s, we're clashing with the Boers, who then move away from the old South African colonies to form the Orange Free State and the Transvaal, getting away from British control into their own republics. But the British infantry are then used to expand further north in the 1850s and 60s. And in the 1870s, we're now looking towards the northern borders of Natal, heading towards Zululand. The 24th are quite an experienced battalion, so our section here coming off patrol, they've been out moving forward in fairly basic order. There's no need for drill, there's no need to actually be marching. They're going to cover 20 miles a day as infantrymen on foot. And they're very acclimatised soldiers. Both battalions, the 1st and the 2nd Battalion, are usually in South Africa. One's already there from 1874, and the 2nd Battalion joins them in 1877. And both battalions see active service in the capital wars coming up for along the Cape in 1877 and 78. And by the time they're heading towards Zululand in 1879, they are probably the most hardened, battle-trained soldiers on the African continent. They're known as reliable soldiers, old sweat, who have been carried out to do the main fighting, which is why Chelmsford, Leicester at the time, decided to take the 1st and 2nd Battalion's 24th as his column, the central column, into Zululand at that time. Now, our soldiers don't look bandbox, they're on campaign. Their kit and equipment is staying down, and staying down with tea, with cattle done, with coffee. Their helmets, all the ornamentation has been taken off of them, and they're dealt down. They don't carry their brass, they're not actually looking for anything in breakdown order, and they don't bother shaving. The main reason behind that is the soldier's got to maintain himself in the field with what he's carrying. There's no transport for them, everything's on their back. So the main ingredients for a soldier, ammunition to fight with, water, food and drink. In Africa, probably water is one of the most important things. We're wearing the 1875 pound equipment, 2 large white pouches on his body on a waist belt, with another further 10 rounds held in the expansive pouch on the side of his hip. They're going into action with around about 40 to 50 rounds per man. On one side, they're all of them on a water bottle, a wooden Jupiter keg, holds about a pint and a quarter of water. That's great if you're actually playing football like our World Cup footballers did in 2012. They needed after 90 minutes of activity in South Africa, 8 to 10 of those to rehydrate. An infantryman is expected to march 20 miles in 100 degrees with just purely one of those bottles. So, the section of Isandlwana, the vast majority of our casualties are from disease, drinking bad, trying to agencies and things like that. So Chelmsford relying on the 24th spot. So the night of the 19th, 20th of January 1879, they're moving forward into Zululand. We crossed the border in late December, looking to fight the Zulus. We don't want to actually have a guerrilla campaign with them. We want to fight them in the open, in good order, where we can actually use our weapons and tactics to benefit. 3 columns go in, left-hand column, right, and central column. Second column's heading for Ulundi, the Zulu capital. As I say, Chelmsford selects the 1st and 2nd Battalion's 24th as its regular Imperial infantry to bomb that column up. By the night of the 20th, they're camping at Isandlwana battlefield, the site itself. Quite symbolic for the 24th, it looks very much like a sphinx when you see it in pictures, and that was an omen. Some thought it was a good omen, some thought it was a bad omen, because it actually echoes the sphinx's colour badge of the lads wearing their uniforms. On the morning of the 21st, Chelmsford decides to split his units. He's looking for the Zulu Impi. He knows somewhere out there are 20 to 30,000 Zulu warriors intent on doing no harm. He knows that if he can meet them in good order, in close order, his weapons, his rifles, will actually destroy a Zulu Impi. And so he goes out on the 21st looking for the opposition. He heads out with approximately half his unit, leaving behind some 6 companies of the 24th, one of the first 24th, the rest 2nd 24th, to actually be the main rear guard, holding the fortifications and the largest wagons at Isandlwana itself. So infantrymen coming back off of picket are dropping themselves into the camp lines. They stand to as normal first thing in the morning at dawn, and that's the time they're expecting any assault. That doesn't come. And pickets are thrown out forward ahead of the line, somewhere in the region of 600 to 700 yards out in front of the tent lines, and in front of those, mounted vedettes. So various cavalry units are thrown forward. Chelmsford isn't rich in cavalrymen. He doesn't have any regular Imperial cavalry. There's a number of Imperial mounted infantry, soldiers who come from infantry sections trained to ride horses, but he has to bring in any other person who can ride. So his cavalry units are made up of people like the Natal Carbineers, a local volunteer force that trained as cavalrymen, but he supplements them with Buffalo Border Guard, the Natal Mounted Police. Anybody who can ride a horse who's quasi-military is pulled into the invasion of Zululand. The camp at Isandlwana is joined that morning by Lieutenant Colonel Diehards, Royal Engineers, who's commanding a composite column of native cavalry. They actually employed some 5 companies of Natal natives mounted on horses, some Christian, some Zulu, some other Natal tribesmen, who actually were formed as a mobile column, and Chelmsford got Diehards to bring his column up. They were the ones who were pushed out further in front of the infantry, looking for the Zulu, and around about 10:30 in the morning, they actually found they were engaged with a Zulu Impi hidden in some holes of a valley north of the campsite, which actually then triggered the Battle of Isandlwana. The Zulus themselves weren't looking to fight that day. They thought it was a bad omen. There was a full moon, and they never fought during full moon against their rituals and beliefs. But once they were surprised, they then had to engage the enemy. There was no doubt that there was going to be a battle that day. And this was the first time they'd come up against the Red Soldier. Ketchawaya was British imperialism was coming north, towards his people, but first there comes the missionary, then there comes the trader, then there comes the Red Soldier. And he knew that eventually, if he was to keep his kingdom as an independent kingdom of tribal lands, he would eventually have to fight the Redcoats. From the Redcoats' point of view, we also had a fairly dubious view of the Zulus. Although we knew of their fearsome reputation as a Shaka Zulu, and they formed the Zulu nation in the 1830s and 40s, and at various times he actually invaded parts of the town to just make sure that we understood exactly where the boundaries were. We actually didn't make them much better than any of the other nation warriors we fought. We fought some of the runaway Zulu tribes in the Cape and in the capital wars coming up in South Africa. So we weren't actually too worried about them. The 24s had fought various native blacks before. We knew we could beat them. In all the battles that we fought up to Isandlwana, even though we were carrying 50 to 70 rounds, the maximum number of rounds we'd ever fought in any one battle was 30. We'd broken them with rifle fire, they weren't going to come on. And our experience as we crossed the Buffalo River, heading towards Ulundi, was that in the couple of skirmishes we had the days before Isandlwana, the Zulus weren't any different. They were going to run away, they weren't going to stand and fight. When we sprung the Zulu Impi in January 1879, that was when the whole thing changed. It's all game. And our infantry suddenly sighted the Zulu Impi to the north. And so what did we do? Camp falls in, and waiting for further orders. The same. Fully, the commanding officer is quite confident that he knows that his soldiers can do well. If he keeps them in close order, firing volleys, they will break the Zulu's offensive spirit. Because the weapon they carry is perfect for this kind of warfare, designed specifically for global warfare. We carry the martini-henry infantry rifle, the infantry rifle, introduced in the British Army in 1874. It's the first general-purpose British local British Army. It fires a .45 caliber lead slug. That's about the size of the top of your thumb. Being soft lead on impact, it blossoms and literally makes a bloody red hole in the person it hits. Goes in half-inch, comes out the size of your fist. It's designed specifically to be able to knock down a large number of natives coming at you in big numbers from a distance. It's sighted optimistically at 1,000 yards, but at 400 yards down, it'll stop a running man in his tracks, put a standing man flat on his back. If it hits bone, it'll amputate and make large core wounds. If it doesn't hit bone, it goes to the person it hits and hits the person behind them. So they're damaged as well. And our musketry is supported by, in this case, a little 3-pounder whip. It wasn't from 1861 original plate. And we're starting to get the Zulus at around about 1,000 yards. Chancellor again was short of artillerymen. So the band and the 24th Foot would train as artillery and supplemented the guns, particularly on Roland's column on the northern flank. So our infantry section is forming around guns. This happened on the front of the Imperial line. We kept in fairly tight, close order. We were shrouded on the one flank by the actual mountain of Isandlwana itself. So our infantry companies were kept in fairly close order, firing volleys in the general direction of the enemy. The Zulus came on some 20 to 30,000 strong. The main body was stopped in front of the Imperial infantry line some 600 yards in front of the camp for over half an hour by volley fire. The Zulus didn't actually have a great deal of respect for the artillery. They waited for the actual guns to be pulled. They saw the lanyard go and they knew that was the time to go flat. And then they could actually drop to the ground and they weren't going to actually be hit by shrapnel in the same way. And Chelmsford had only 2 artillery pieces that he put in the centre of the Imperial line to actually give him the maximum amount of firepower he could with his artillery. The other 4 guns, the 5 battery, were deployed with him going further north, searching for Zulu, because that's where he thought he'd need the firepower when he hit the MP somewhere north of him. To say, the 24th Pulley was quite confident that he could hold them, and certainly for over half an hour we held the Zulu warriors at 400 yards. They'd go first, they wouldn't come on, they wouldn't come into the actual British Imperial fire because it was too heavy for them, it was causing too many casualties. One of the Zulu warriors, Indunas, the commanders, actually assured his people, check your way out even in your borders like this, we've got to close with them. Leapt up, tried to move forward, mown down again. The 24th reports of the officers who survived called the 24th of laughing and joking. They were confident they were giving the Zulus one end of a good hiding. They were beating them, they knew they had them on the run. However, on the flanks we had other problems. On the side where this mountain was, the Zulu right horn was hooking around the mountain and coming to the soft back of the on the other flank, the left horde of Zulu was throwing outwards to try and intercept Diehards infantry. Cavalry. Pulling knew he had to support the cavalry, and so Pope's Company, G Company and 24th, were thrown forward in skirmish order, trying to actually keep touch with Diehards' left wing. The problem was Diehards was mounted, he was pulling back fairly regularly, pulling his cavalry back towards the camp, and leaving Pope's Company further and further extending itself. By the end of the actual engagement, they reckon the Pope was in the region of 3 yards a man between each of his infantry. An 80-strong infantry company with 3 yards apart, there's no weight to their line. And unfortunately for Pope's lads, they were cut up by the Zulu very, very heavily, very quickly. One of the first casualties, major casualties there. The martini is a very, very effective weapon. It's a breech-loading weapon, and it's capable of firing between 10 and 12 aim rounds a minute. It's effective at a quick rate of fire as an SMLE, in the effort of the Great War. And when the Victorians introduced this weapon, it was the first time that we actually had an infantry rifle that was more effective than a bow and arrow. Every weapon between the bow and arrow and the martini-henry couldn't fire as effectively or as quickly as this weapon. So it suddenly put us back where we needed to be in terms of high-quality, high-tech weapon. These were Queen Victoria's weapons of mass destruction. It allowed the British Army to take the empire and hold it for her, and they were specifically designed, as I say, for colonial conflict. The announcement of the great South African game hunter recommended the martini as the perfect weapon to kill bull elephant with. If you can bring down a bull elephant, start to think what it does to a human being when it hits. The Imperial infantry, some 800 strong, capable of 10 to 12 aim rounds a minute. Do the maths yourself. That's a lot of ammunition heading in the general direction of an enemy. And we don't need to be good shots, because we don't care whether we hit somebody on this side of the arena or that side of the arena at 200 yards. As long as you hit one of you, you hit enough of you, your will to close combat is broken, and you're not going to do us any damage. So the weapon is uniquely built and purpose-built for colonial conflict. Now, Pope's Company falling back, as we are here, in rallying clubs. The idea behind that is if you can't get yourself back in good order, you fall in small numbers, just volleying into the enemy, pulling yourself back so you're all actually retreating into a large club, and eventually that coalesces to a company club, and hopefully then you can start to form a square from there. The Zulus described the British infantry as they're falling back at Isandlwana as a black mass ready to stop. And the infantry are trying to hold themselves together. There's at least 6 or 7 recorded last standing fights on the battlefield. They're marched by 10, in some cases 30 to 40 strong. One of them nearly 120 bodies. So the British infantry, although Pope's Company was cut up fairly early, even by 1:30 in the afternoon, the actual infantry themselves, some 600 of them, are still fighting in formed bodies. Anthony's company retired nearly 3 miles and died on the Isandlwana stream, 3 miles along the track towards Hawk's Drift, 60 men strong. They're falling back in groups like this, rallying clubs. The idea being you can walk back so far, spray your glove away off the end of the rifle, continue returning fire from there. A very, very effective way of getting an infantry unit together in good order. Gives you some idea of the kind of tactics deployed at Isandlwana itself, the kind of problems that Chelmsford faced in terms of his actual military strength and weaknesses. This is the only time the Zulus beat us. That evening at Hawk's Drift, the 11 Victoria Crosses won at that point. The high point, if you like, of the British Army's day. Bad point was Isandlwana itself. And from then on in, things change. The Zulus never charge home in the same way. Ketuweya said that their spear has been thrust into the nation's belly. Over 1,000, 1,200 Zulus killed at Isandlwana, They reckon about 1,000 to 1,200 wounded who die over the next 2 to 3 months because of the major trauma wounds they've suffered. He loses somewhere in the region of 10 to 12% of his military force. At Gingin I Love You, one of the other battles in the second invasion in June, the Zulus taunt the British square with the boys from Isandlwana, but they don't close to contact. They won't come in, the records talk that they never come in close combat in the same way they did when the first time they fought the British Redcoat. And even at the end of Isandlwana, when our ammunition's run out, our blokes are still just fighting in hand-to-hand combat. With a fixed bayonet, the Zulu gives the accolade of killing a British Redcoat the same as that of killing a lion. So they had a great deal of respect for the British infantrymen. We had the same. We actually respected the Zulus. And even by 1881, less than 2 years after the battles, there were reenactments of the Zulu War being held in the sham fights at Aldershot and other places around the country because of the respect we had for the Zulu warriors, one of the first African tribes we come across that fought in the same way that we did, in hand-to-hand combat with a degree of gallantry. That brings us towards the end of the display this morning. We're just carrying out a few weapons checks to make sure everyone's safe, that we haven't got any jammed cases or any problems from that. I'm going to talk a little bit about the 24th itself. It was a very unlucky regiment. It had fought in India during the Sikh Wars in the 1840s and suffered a particularly bloody defeat at a place called Chilianwala. The officers of the 24th, before they crossed the Buffalo River, actually ground off the mess silver that was at Chilianwala. They lost nearly somewhere in the region of half the regiment, and they actually drank a toast saying, "We hope this isn't going to be another bloody defeat like that." Less than a third of the officers who drank that toast were alive within 2 weeks. So the 24th, probably a very unlucky regiment. Eventually become the South Wales Borderers in 1881 and carry on as they are now as the Royal Regiment of Wales. So having completed our weapons checks, our infantry sections going to present arms and give 3 cheers for Majesty Queen Victoria to finish the arena show off. You see why there's a respect for the bayonet. It's not a big stick, a little number 4 that you see on the Lee Enfield. This is 21 3/4 inches of triangular steel, the 1876 or 53 pattern bayonet. On behalf of the Diehards, the 80th Foot and B Company 24th, thank you very much for your time and attention, ladies and gentlemen. We'll move the section back to our tent lines, which are over by the beer tent, conveniently. If you want to talk a little bit about Africa, wanted to know a bit more about the kit and equipment, we're quite privileged that probably 2/3 of us here today have actually reenacted on both Isandlwana and Rorke's battlefields. Some of us actually spent more time in Red there than anybody other than the lads who've been buried there. So we do know the battlefields of the Zulu War particularly well. And so if you want to come along, have a chat to us, we're quite user-friendly. If you fancy taking the Queen's Shilling, we're quite up for recruiting as well. So thank you very much once again.